to start on time. And I will be recording this meeting for future reference for somebody who was not able to join us. So welcome everybody to our first virtual Twin Cities Sailing Club orientation for new racers. I'm Cynthia Callanan. If you haven't met me already, I'm going to be this year's racing coordinator for Twin Cities Sailing Club. And I'll be assisted by my husband, John Burke. He was the former racing coordinator for 10 years. And before that, he was the Commodore for 4 years. So he's been around a lot longer than me. So I hope all of you have the gallery view on Zoom. And that way you can see each other and you can begin to learn each other's names. If we had been doing this in person in my house, you would be sitting near each other around the dining room with name tags on. And since we don't have that option, it would be helpful if you could have gallery view so that you can all see each other. And we have quite a few people here. I don't know Porteño though. So who is that person? And oh, let's unmute you. And thank you for joining us. So I didn't recognize that name from the left. So John's going to be monitoring the chat room, and if you have a question or a comment as we proceed, he's going to interrupt me and then ask you to chime in. But until then, just mute your microphone until he calls on you so that any background noise from your end is not broadcast to the whole meeting, like squeaky chairs or family members or pets and things like that. And I'm going to start by getting one question out of the way right before we begin, and that is, will we have a sailing season? Well, we don't know. There's so much that we don't know about, and this XCOM met 2 weeks ago and decided that we would hold off on accepting new members until we have more information. And they're meeting again this coming Monday night to see what more information we might have. Usually the XCOM meets once a month, but since we're meeting virtually and because there's so much we don't know, the XCOM decided to meet an extra time between our monthly meetings, so to see if we have more information. The park board met this past week and decided they'll cancel all park events. Think about stuff like charity runs and concerts, the regular lessons that they have for the park board, and lots of other things. And the beaches will be closed. They're not hiring lifeguards. But people will still be able to walk and bike and kayak and use the parks using social distancing. And they didn't really say anything about buoys yet, so we'll wait to see what the XCOM tells us after the next meeting. So just watch Slack or email for those answers. And so why are we having these seminars? Well, the racing seminars have always been held in the off season in the month of April. As we begin to think about the upcoming sailing and racing season, and I could have postponed them and held them in May. The sailing season is going to start in June, but I realized that we'd be busy doing yard work and other fun things outside. So let's just proceed with the normal schedule. And even if the sailing season is delayed, we can start thinking about racing and get started. So I'm just going to proceed as if the sailing and racing season is going to happen this year, even though we already know it's going to start later than usual. And we have someone, okay, I'm hearing some background noise. So I'm going to mute Hilda and Porteño so we don't have so much background noise for everybody else. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. And here we go. So use the chat room to ask John if you have any questions, okay? So when I began racing on Lake Harriet, when I began racing about 13 years ago, Lake Harriet Yacht Club held education seminars in people's homes in the spring. And there was no orientation for new TCSC racers like this that we're doing. But over the years, Lake Harriet Yacht Club has combined their education efforts with ours. And over the next 3 weeks, we will have Lake Harriet Yacht Club members on their education team, along with John Burke, who will be presenting topics for returning racers to refresh their memories of what they need to know about racing or to refine their knowledge. So all of you are welcome to attend all of those seminars as well. I'll send out a link each week. If you have any questions about stuff that's covered in those seminars, feel free to send me an email to ask any clarifying questions, either just during or after those seminars, okay? So, and that our joint program is called Fun to Sail Fast. And make sure I have my mouse in the right place. There we go. As you can see in our logo, it has our name of our club as well as Lake Harriet Yacht Club, because they are really, really wonderful people, and they want you to learn, they want you to get better, and you're really going to find that they're a great group of people who are going to encourage you to be a better racer. So what motivates people to race? If we were all sitting around my dining room, I just have you turn and talk to each other and say, okay, what motivates you? But since we're a large group and I don't want to take up a lot of time asking everybody to share out in the virtual meeting, I would invite you to add a comment in the chat room about what motivates you to race sailboats, and I'm going to read them all later. I recall that when I joined the club, I skippered out in late July. And one time I was out sailing with Rob, who was the racing coordinator in those days, and he asked me, so Cynthia, when are we going to get you racing? And I said, oh, I just skippered out. I think I want to get better at sailing first. And he told me the way to be a better sailor is to become a racer. And I have found that to be true. Learning how to race and trying to improve myself as a racer has made me a better sailor. And that was 13 years ago. And I'm still working on improving my sailing skills every summer through racing. And whether it's just to improve your personal best or whatever your reason might be, that we all have our motivations for racing. People have been sailing on Lake Harriet for many years, and one of the early landowners in Linden Hills is a man named Isaac Reeves, who decided that Lake Harriet was a good place to sail, and he put his boat in the lake, and the rest is history, as you can see from that old picture of people out there racing. Over the years, Lake Harriet Yacht Club has had a variety of boat types that participated in their races, but now there's just 2 fleets, the MC Fleet and the M16 Fleet. So can you see my cursor here? This is an M16. It's a boat that has a jib. And the M16 Fleet is quite small, but the MC Fleet is substantial thanks to our 11 MCs that TCSC owns, and it allows as many as 11 of us to participate in races. So typically we sail these boats solo, yay for physical distancing, and but if you had high wind, crew would be warranted. The ideal weight for an MC in high wind is around 300 pounds. So you'll still see some racers sailing solo in high wind, but other racers who are smaller would probably take a crew in high wind. But otherwise, it's a great boat for sailing solo. And just went too fast. So our lake is home to some of the top-notch racers in the country. Bill Coburn has been sailing on Lake Harriet since he was a kid, and then went off to college and came back and continued racing as an adult on Lake Harriet. Ryan Grosh is another top-notch racer. Between Bill and Ryan, they both end up in the top 5 nationally every year, but they race with us weekends and Wednesday nights, and they are very willing to teach you, and I feel like whenever you see them out there, just try to copy what they're doing, do what they do. You can learn a lot from them. They're great people, but all the LHYC racers are wonderful people, so you're going to enjoy that. Oops, sorry. Let's see. So, Sorry about that. Let's go on to the next slide. When you come down to a race, you'll see a lot of volunteers getting these boats ready. The one with the mast on the right is the committee boat, and then there'll be 2 safety boats. They will taxi you out to your boat in the buoy field. That's why there's no need to row out and get a boat when you race. They're all volunteers, so you will be asked to volunteer as a safety boat person as well. The principal race officer is Red Cross trained to administer first aid. You might notice that there are no motorboats allowed on any city lakes except safety boats. And that's because we need to be able to administer first aid in an emergency really quickly. So, whoops, I went too fast, sorry. So typically the races on Lake Harriet are Windward Leeward. The image on the left is the one that you would see in the sailing instructions on the LHYC website. The one on the right is a simplified version showing the start line down here, represented by the committee boat, which is the triangle, and the pin, which is this dot. And this invisible line is our start line. You would sail up to the Windward Mark. There'll be a little offset over here, and sail back down around this pin here. That's your Leeward Mark. Back up again and back down again. But they will pull the anchor on this committee boat and move it to bring it up here for the finish line, and the finish line is a windward finish line. So on the side of the boat, there's a little sign that says WA3, that would represent this particular course, meaning that it's a windward leeward course. The finish line will be at the Windward Mark, and there will be 3 upward legs. So Saturday races a lot of times are WA4, Sunday races are WA5. The WA3 would be used if it was a light wind race, because their goal is to have everybody finish the race within an hour. So they don't want you out there sailing very, very slowly on a light wind day. So this is what this is what the start line looks like. The committee boat on one end with the mast and flags flying it, and on the other end, a pin. Most of ours are not this triangle shape, they are round. But there's all the boats all bunched up together. That's why you need to have really good boat handling skills. So you want to be a racer. How do you get to do that? Well, this year we're going to have a racing skipper card, and I will be mailing one out to each of you, and it will already have checked that you completed the racer orientation. I'm assuming all of you have become a club skipper by now. And the other things you could do is read the LHYC sailing instructions. When I looked on their website, they had not been updated, but they will be updated soon. It will not hurt to read last year's, because there's a lot in there, and even if they update it, they'll tell you what's new. And then there's a racing quiz. I'll update that and get it out to you. I'll email it to all of you by May 1st. It's an open book quiz, so that means that you can look for your answers on the web. You don't have to have it all in your head. And then there's an on-water assessment. We won't be able to do this until we have boats on the water, but we expect you to participate in at least 2 of the Fun to Sail Fast on-water practices. And when you come down for at least 2 of those, you'll be able to do all the other things by landing your boat at a buoy, rigging it solo, and holding your boat in irons for 30 seconds. These are all skills that are not required to be a skipper in Twin Cities Sailing Club, but they are required to become a racer, because these are things you need to know to be able to do on a race course. And once you finish this card, I will issue a number, and you will have that number for life. And how do you use your number? Well, when you come down for a race, you stop in the shed, and next to the door, I'll show you this when we have on-water practices. This racing register will be on a clipboard with a pen right near the door, and you will go in and sign in. Write your name neatly on the roster there, and then write in the name of the boat that you want. And then after you've written the name of the boat you want, go down here to the list of boats and cross out the boat you picked. That way, racers who show up after you will know which boats are left. And then the last column here is where you write your score number. And I'll have the score numbers here for you to reference if you've forgotten. It's your number for life, so after you've raced a few times, you'll remember your number. But I'll leave it there just in case. And I generally try to have this list of boats listed in order of how far they are away from the dock. So, but it's important for you to notice the buoy number, because when you go out to get a taxi ride out to the buoy, the first thing you're going to do is tell them what buoy it is. But you're going to remember your race number, because when you get out there on the lake, you're going to sail up to the committee boat and you're going to tell them, this person who's sitting down probably has a clipboard. You're going to tell that person your name, your sail number, up there here on your sail, and your TCSC number. Because your sail number could change every time you go sailing. You might be sailing a different boat each time. LHYC people, they have one sail number. Every time they're sailing, it's the same number. But we have different boats and different sails, so we have to give them the TCSC number to keep it consistent. It's really important for them to keep, to get that number. So if you don't get to do it before the race, then try to remind yourself to do it at the end of the race. So this is the video that I sent you in the link. I hope you all got to see it. Right now I want to ask if there are any questions. John, do you have anybody who has questions? Let's see here. John. Okay, hold on here. Open up the chat. Open up the chat. Oh no. Sorry, folks.
No questions so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so we're going to move along. The next part, we're going to talk about the parts and sequence of a typical race. And the important thing is, before the race starts, several days before the race, you might want to look at the weather. You might want to know what proper gear you might need. If it's going to be rainy, you're going to need rain gear. If it's going to be cold, you might need long johns underneath your sailing gear. The important thing to have is a watch, though, because everybody needs a watch out there so that they can know the timing of the start. I also like to have one of those straps on my glasses so that the glasses don't end up in the lake if they get knocked off my face in a maneuver. And I also think that a water bottle is essential because I get dehydrated out there. But get down there early. The race on Saturday starts at 1 o'clock, but the taxi boat will start bringing people out about noon. And use that time to get out there and help and get yourself oriented to the lake. But don't forget to sign up your name on the clipboard before the race. Some people like to do a few warm-up stretches on the shore before they get on the taxi boat. But then the taxi will take you out, drop you off at your lake, at your boat. So you have to rig solo and then sail away and go on out to the lake and start to notice the wind and see, you know, are there puffs? Is there one side of the lake that's windier than the other? Practice about 10 tacks and jives. Really get comfortable in the boat that you chose. Practice raising and lowering the boards. See how that boat feels. And once the race committee starts setting up the course, go ahead and practice those mark roundings. There's some quick rules for the start line. If you go over the line early, you have to go out around the pin or the boat and restart. So you don't want to be going over the line early because restarting could really set you back. If you touch the pin or you hit the committee boat, you have to round and restart. So try to have good boat handling skills. And it's helpful to know which is going to be the favored tack, because in here, this person in boat A started really close to the committee boat and is going on this long tack first, whereas B started down this end and ended up way, way over here and then had to tack over. We're all going to have to make some tacks on that first upwind leg, but it would be helpful if you took the longest tack first. So we're going to watch a little video here.
The most common course type is the Windward Leeward course. Better to start downwind of a mark, beat upwind, turn around the mark, also called rounding the mark, then sail downwind. Racers may sail directly across the finish line, or they may be required to round another mark, called the Leeward Mark, and then beat back upwind across the finish line. The buoy that marks the other end of the starting line is sometimes referred to as the pin. In almost all races, the pin will be the left end of the starting line, and the committee boat will be the right end of the starting line. A good way to find the starting line is to take a line sight. Prior to the race, sail to a point where you can line the two ends of the starting line up with the shore. Note an immobile onshore object that is in line with the two ends of the starting line. Later, as you approach the starting line, watch the shore object and one of the ends of the starting line. When the two align, you are on the line. The starting line has a starting side and a course side. The only requirement for a successful start is that at or after the sound of the starting gun or horn, the boats cross the starting line from the starting side to the course side. Any boats which are on the course side of the line at the sound of the gun are declared over early and must sail back across the starting line and restart while avoiding any boats that started correctly.
Okay. I like this video because it tells you how to do a line sight, which is really helpful because sometimes you can't see the mark or you can't tell where the line is. But be sure to not choose a parked car because the parked car might move away by the time the race starts. So I'm usually looking for an unusual tree or a house roof. Unfortunately, we do not have too many lovely poles that are just sitting there to be the line sites. But it's a helpful trick to use. So before the 5-minute start sequence, what are the things that we want to do? You want to get your line sights. You want to try to figure out which end of the line is favored. Typically, the committee boat is pointing to the end of the line that is favored because they try to set up a perfectly square course, which means that the committee boat is pointing straight towards the Windward Mark, but the wind might shift and then you'll see the committee boat shift just slightly. And if it's pointing in one direction, that would mean that the boat, if it's pointing to the right, then the boat end might be favored. If it's pointing to the left, the pin end might be favored. So where do you want to be? Do you want to be in the middle, to the right, to the left? Do you want to be in with the crowd? Do you want to be back a little bit? Is there anybody you want to avoid? And think about what your first few tacks might be. Where would you want to be? So before this race sequence, practice running up to the line. How much time does it take to power up from a drifting position to going as fast as possible? And don't get too far away from the line. Cruise around in the box until it's time to get started. So you're going to be reaching back and forth, getting a feel for your approach, and then set up down from the committee boat for a starboard approach start. You always want to be starting on starboard because starboard has rights over port. Anybody who tries to start on port has to avoid everybody, and it's a risky move, and I would not recommend it for a beginner. So you want to find clear air and room to move as you're getting set up for the start. And we'll practice all this on the water so you get a good feel for it. But 3 things to remember. You want clear air, you want speed, and you want to be crossing at the horn. Not too early and not too late. So those are the 3 things to think about as you're getting ready to start. clear air means you don't have another boat sitting on top of you that's creating a wind shadow, because they're getting all the fresh air and you're getting nothing. So you want a little bit of space between you and the other boats just so you can get that clear air. So about 2 minutes before the start, you want to be in your spot on starboard. And then about 20 to 15 seconds before the go horn, you want to start accelerating so that you are crossing the start line at the horn. So let's talk about the start sequence. This is the biggest mystery to a lot of new racers. They will have a 5-minute horn, and the MC flag will go up. Their MC flag is actually white with black letters on it, and it's a small flag on a pole, and you'll see them raise up in the air and then stick it on the mast there. That's at 5 minutes. Then at 4 minutes, this I flag will go up. That's yellow with a black dot on it. And then there will be no more horns until 1 minute when the I flag comes down. So if you see the I flag flying, then you know you're between 4 minutes and 1 minute. By 2 minutes, you better be in position, because at 1 minute when that comes down, you want to be ready to go. You're drifting, you're holding your boat in irons maybe, you're in that cluster of boats. But you want to be ready at 1 minute. And that's where the watch really helps, so that you can count down, because at the start horn, the MC flag will come down. Sometimes they'll take it out of the mast and then they'll wave it to say this is the start of the race. So let's recap this start sequence. It's 5, 4, 1, go. Okay, and that's the race sequence that they use on the weekends. Wednesday nights, they tend to use a 3-minute sequence. And so it might be 3, and then another sound at 2 minutes, then it's another sound at 1 minute, and then go. But on weekends, it's 5, 4, 1, 0. So you had a great start. Let's go. Now, there are a couple of rules. We learn all of these rules to become a skipper, but they're really, really important for racing. So boats on a port tack are going to give way to boats on a starboard tack. Boats on the same tack, the one that is windward shall keep clear of the one that's leeward, and overtaking boats will keep clear of whatever boats they're overtaking. The best way to remember all these rules is the boat that has, except for a port and starboard, the boat that has more power has to give way to the boat that is the underdog. And a boat that changes course, even if it has the right of way, has to do so in a manner that gives the burden boat a chance to keep clear and give way. So even if you have the right of way, you have to give the other boat room to get out of your way. And even if you have right of way, it's your duty to avoid a collision, because the last thing we want to have is that your boats hit each other, because that's where damage comes into play, and you definitely do not want to be damaging somebody else's boat, or even one of our boats. But there's going to be a rules seminar in a couple of weeks, and he has a lot of animations, and he's going to review all of these rules. So now we have a little video here.
You must avoid contact with other boats if possible. Even if your boat has the right of way, you must avoid contact. But you do not need to act until it becomes obvious that the other boat is not going to keep clear. When both boats are on the same tack, the boat that is to windward shall keep clear of the boat to leeward. When both boats are on the same tack, the boat clear astern shall keep clear of the boat it is overtaking. It cannot run into the back of the boat it is overtaking. But unlike the rules of the road, once the boat astern overlaps the overtaken boat, this rule switches off, and the windward-leeward rule turns on. The windward boat shall keep clear. In this example, the overtaking boat passes the boat ahead on the windward side, and the overtaking boat becomes the giveaway boat and must keep clear of the boat overtaken. When both boats are on the same tack, the boat clear astern shall keep clear of the boat it is overtaking. It cannot run into the back of the boat it is overtaking. But unlike the rules of the road, once the boat astern overlaps the overtaken boat, this rule switches off, and the windward-leeward rule turns on. where the windward boat shall keep clear. In this example, the overtaking boat passes the boat ahead on the leeward side. The overtaking boat has the right of way.
Okay, so that's an animation that shows us some of those rules in action. So the other thing you need to know is there's a penalty. If you follow someone and they have to change their course because you made a mistake, they will protest. They'll yell out protest, and you then have to take 2 tacks and 2 jives. So that's 2 turns. If you end up touching the boat or colliding with another boat, then you have to take 2 tacks and 2 jives. If you hit a mark, it's just 1 tack and 1 jive. So you want to avoid hitting somebody, but you also want to avoid fouling somebody, that is, making a mistake and forcing them to change their course so that they can avoid hitting you. And we'll practice some of these tacks and jives so that if you get good at it, it doesn't slow you down too much. You have to move away from everybody to take your turns, so that can set you back, but you really would like to avoid having any penalties. So then we get going. After the start, we're just trying to sail as fast as we can. Boat speed is the most important thing. So we want to figure out, how can I make my boat go fast? So you need clear air, you need momentum, and it's impossible to tack if you're not moving. So you want to make sure you have the momentum and room to move if you want to make a tack. You want to heel your boat 8 to 12 degrees. A flat boat is not going to go as fast as a boat that's slightly heeled. And you always want to sit forward, close to the traveler. I notice a lot of folks in Twin Cities Sailing Club, they sit way, way back and they never use the tiller extension. The best place to be sitting is sitting forward with your thigh practically touching the traveler, and use the tiller extension so that you're that's where they design the boats for you to sit. And if you're sitting there, you're going to be able to go faster. The boom and the blocks should be about 2 fists apart, because when you're heading upwind, you're on a close hauled course. So your boom is pulled in nearly all the way. We do not sail on a reach, we're sailing on a close hauled course. So trim that sail and bring it right in. You need to be going as fast as possible. Good tacks are smooth. It's not a 90-degree turn. It's a curved arc. So you want to practice your tacks. When in Twin Cities Sailing Club, they talk about using the expression hard a lee, and they jam the tiller way, way over. Well, that's a terrible way to tack. You want to move the tiller very smoothly and consistently, because if you jam the tiller way over, it's going to put the brakes on and bring the boat almost to a stop. So you want to try to execute your tack without rocking the boat and keeping your heel consistent as you move from one side to the other. Now, when you're out there on the course, there is going to be what's called a lifted tack. It's a mystery to a lot of beginning racers, but there's always going to be one tack that's taking you closer to the mark. The wind never stays in one direction. They try to set the course that, it's windward, leeward, but on Lake Harriet, it shifts a little bit to one side, and then it will come back to the middle, and it'll shift to the other side, and then it'll come back to the middle. You want to be watching for those shifts. If you notice as you're sailing upwind that your bow is dropping against the shoreline, you need to tack. You don't want to get headed. If you feel like your boat is pointing close to the windward mark, you're being lifted, and it's going to feel good. You're going to feel that you're going faster. So watch for that. And we'll practice that out on the lake as well. So here in this picture, you see this boat starts here on the start line with the original wind. A new wind shifts over here, and he finds he has to turn because otherwise he'd be in irons. He's heading down a little bit and realizes, okay, this is not good. I'm going to tack, and he tacks and heads up towards the windward mark this way. So when the course was originally set, the original ley line was right here. But once the wind shifted, the new ley line was here. So when he gets up to the ley line, he's going to turn and head up to the Windward Mark. So you're always looking for that ley line. And when you get closer to it, that's where you're going to be watching out for where is the ley line and when do I get to turn so I can head up around that Windward Mark. So here we're going to watch a little video about ley lines.
Seen here, our opponent is sailing along on starboard tack near the ley line. Due to an unfavorable wind shift or just poor judgment, our opponent is sailing just below the ley line. This will require 2 tacks to get them above the ley line and around the mark. To pin our opponent, we cross behind and then immediately tack. This puts us off our opponent's starboard quarter. This leaves them no room to tack safely. This forces our opponent to slow down and pass behind us to fetch the mark. They can't beat us to it. So that will allow you to lay your boat alongside that something. The ley line to the mark will put you in a position to round the mark. Ley lines will shift with the wind. Upwind, the ley lines are the close-hauled course that will let you fetch the mark. Downwind, they're the most efficient compromise of speed and sailing angle.
So when we get to the Windward Mark, there is a 3 boat length circle, and there's some special rules that apply about who has the right of way when we're entering the 3 boat length circle. But the boat that's on the inside generally has the right of way once they're in that circle. One of the things you need to notice is they always have an offset, a little tiny buoy that's over here to the side. You're going to be rounding to port. It means that the big buoy is on your port side, and then you reach over to the offset, and then you head downwind. So when you're entering the 3 boat length circle from the mark, the boat closest and most inside to the mark has rights to round the mark first. Any boat that's overlapping and on the inside at the 3 boat length mark will have the right of way. So who has the right of way in this one? Anybody know? Let's see if they can see that one again. Just stop it. Whoops, back. I went back, go back, go back. John, do we have any answers for that one? Back. So in this one, the red was on the inside, but so the green should have given it room to pass. Is that right, John? So the red entered the 3 boat length circle first.
Yep, red is inside and first inside the 3 boat lengths, so he has rights, and green should give way.
Yeah, so green should have given him a little bit more room, knowing what usually happens though is this red boat has such bad wind that they end up going slowly and they get stuck there. But the green should have given them a little bit more room. All right, so you're going up to the Windward Mark. You want to sail up to the ley line, go a little bit above, because if the wind shifts, it's going to force you into that stuck position that we just saw that red boat in. You don't want to hit the mark. If you do, that's a 1 tack and 1 jibe penalty. If you do hit the mark, please sail, away from everybody else to do your turns. Don't try to do your turns right there close to the marks. And then look where the wind is going, how the wind might be shifting. Sometimes the Windward Mark is a dangerous place and boats tip over. So just as you're approaching the Windward Mark, watch out what's happening with the wind. Look how far people are sailing after they pass the offset. Are they jibing right away after they go around the offset, or are they sailing further out? You will have to jibe at least once between the Windward Mark and the Leeward Mark. So if you're not comfortable jibing, we want to get you comfortable jibing, because you're going to do that at least once every time you head downwind. So this is an actual picture from Lake Harriet. There's the mark and there's the offset. You can see it's much, much smaller. So some common mistakes as people are hitting the Windward Mark is they turn too close, they turn too soon, and then they're too far below. and they have to pinch up to the mark, and that slows you down, and then they don't make it. Or they go way too far past the ley line, and you're just sailing a longer course, and the other people will pass you. If you make the ley line too soon, a lot of boats might be in front of you, but if you get there too late, you might be stuck below a lot of other people. So just don't run into either one of those marks. So here's somebody who came up, a whole bunch of people were already on the ley line, and he can't get in because he's on port. He has no rights. All the starboard boats have rights over him, and there's no place to squeeze in. Now, if you came up on port and there was no other boats there, well, that's not a problem. You can just sail around, which, of course, if you were the first one to the mark, you could do that. But I'm never the first one to the mark, and so I have to, watch for who else is out there and plan on how I'm going to get around that group of boats on the line. So now it's time to go downwind. The sail is going to be all the way out, running downwind. So get your sail out all the way as quickly as possible after you pass that offset. Pull the boards up 3/4. You might loosen your sail controls, ease the bang, and heel your boat. Even going downwind, you want to heel your boat. And look behind you and see if you see any puffs, because if there's a puff, you want to get into that wind. Look at the other good sailors, where are they going, and follow them. If the wind is low, you want to sit on the same side as the sail and heel your boat that way. If it's medium to high wind, you can sit opposite the sail and hike out. So, and that the sail will be way, way up in the sky at that point. You might want to jibe if there are major wind shifts to maintain your course. An important thing to remember, because there will be other racers ahead of you, and they're coming back upwind. You have to give way to all those boats going upwind. You might think, oh, well, they're the good guys and they're fast and they're ahead of me, so they should yield to me because I'm at the back of the fleet, and that's not the case. You are the Windward boat and they are the Leeward boat, so you have to give way to them. So watch out for anybody who's coming back upwind. Now, you might think that the shortest course is to just go straight down on the run line. It's generally faster if you sail off a little bit. You get better wind, and it's counterintuitive, but you'll see the other really good racers doing it. So try that out. Now at the Windward Mark, the 3-boat length rule will apply as well. And the blue boat you see here is the first one to the 3-boat length line and is on the inside. And generally, people will start talking to each other when they get to the Leeward Mark, and they'll say, I need mark room, and all these other boats need to get out of his way and give him room to get around the mark. So as you're getting close to that Leeward Mark, scan for other boats around you so you know who you might be interacting with as you approach the mark. You want to drop your board. Remember, your boards were raised going downwind. You want to drop the leeward board when you're about 6 lengths away from the pin, and you want to prepare for a really soft arc around the mark. So the rule is start wide and finish tight. Don't try to do a really sharp turn around the mark, because the big deal about going around the Leeward Mark is your sail was out all the way. You're going to be pulling in your sheet to a close haul position, and that's a lot of work to get that sheet pulled in really, really fast. So get ready to pull it in really, really quickly to get close hauled. So here's a picture of 2 boats that are coming down. Their sails are way, way out here, and they're coming in wide, and then they want to come up tight. But when they're coming up tight, that's a close haul position, so you can see how much pulling in of the main sheet is going on here. And Beth came in first. It has the right of way. It looks like she's coming up around here, but Carl came in late and had to duck in front of her. And so sometimes you can do that. Even though you are the second boat, you can come in a little bit closer and get ahead of we can try to get who's sailing out here a little bit. So as you're coming in, these boats are overlapped. You want to do a seaman-like rounding. So even though the inside boat has the right of way, he shouldn't be pushing this blue boat unnecessarily way away from the mark. It should be a seaman-like rounding, meaning, you know, be a good sport and don't be a jerk. Just because you have rights doesn't mean you can push that person out to Richfield. All right, now we're going to go upwind again, and this is going to happen over and over. You're just going to be watching for the wind shifts, watching out for the remaining downwind boats as they're coming down, because they're going to have to yield to you, but you don't necessarily want to be in their wind shadow either. So if you see a bunch of boats coming downwind, you might say, you know, I think I'm going to sail away from that group just to get out of their wind shadow. And look at the rest of the fleet. Where are they going? Are they heading more to the right, more to the left? That might be a signal to you of where the wind might be better. So we're going to keep going. You're going to go upwind, downwind, upwind, downwind. It's time for the finish line. And the finish line has some similar concepts to the Windward Mark. So look out for the ley line and visualize the ley line. Now the ley line has two components to it. It has the boat and the pin. So you want to see what that ley line looks like and make sure that you're lining up your boat to cross the finish line most efficiently. And your height is important. You want to be higher to the wind and the line than other people. That means you don't want to be sailing on a reach. You want to be sailing on a close hauled course as fast as possible to get to that finish line as fast as you can. And you want to cover the boat that's nearest you, that's just below you. So as you come around that leeward mark, I always look and see, okay, who's behind me? Okay, Joe's behind me or Chuck's behind me, and I pick one of those boats. And as I'm sailing up course, whenever that boat tacks, I tack and try to keep my boat between that one that I'm covering as I head up to the finish line. And that's one way that you can just keep your position. If you're already ahead of them, you want to stay ahead of them. You don't want them to pass you on that last leg. And then as you pass the finish line, the committee boat will call out your sail number, and that's your cue to say thank you to the committee boat, because they're all volunteers and we appreciate them setting up the course so we can have races. So there's the folks coming into the finish line, and you finish the race. So we will have on-water practice. I have no idea when, and we'll have some shore talks at the whiteboard, and we'll have lots of drawing of boats and things like that, answering a lot of your questions, and then we'll get out on the water for some coaching. There'll be somebody with a megaphone who'll be calling out to you as you're doing various drills and exercises on the lake. And I sent you a handout in your email. If you did not get it, let me know. Email me any questions that you might have, and please join in the remaining seminars until we launch the boats. We have some interesting topics coming up. And that's all I have. How are we doing, John? Any questions? I've got a lot of comments in the questions. So, Whit, did you want to have a comment? You know, I'm going to unmute everybody. How do I do that? Unmute all. So does anybody have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Cynthia. It's really, this covers the basics, which is really what I need at this point. Well, aside from experience on the water, of course.
Yeah. we all need experience on the water, and that's the whole point of having the on-water practices before the racing season gets going full force. I have no idea what the racing season is going to look like, but we'll still have those practices because there's lots of people who want to be out there coaching you and helping you refine your skills so that you're really, really ready once the races begin.
Cynthia, did you send information on that book for beginner racers?
On the handout, let me find that handout. Let me see if I can put it on my screen.
Yeah, there's a bunch of references at the bottom.
Okay. Yeah, and so one of those is a beginning racer book. And
Getting started in sailboat racing, is that the one, John?
Yep, that's a great book. I highly recommend it. If you can find a copy of it, it really goes through quite a lot of the basics and does a great job of giving you tips and insight.
Great.
Agree.
Okay. Thank you, Pat, for finding that name quicker than I did.
I happen to have it up in front of me.
Okay, any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you all for coming. Watch Slack, watch your email. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stuff about what the spring season will look like. LHYC is having their meeting a week later. So it will be TCSC will be meeting Monday, LHYC will be meeting the following Monday, and then TCSC will be meeting next Monday after that. So as we learn more information, decisions will be made and they will be communicated out to you. And yeah, we're definitely living in strange times, so who knows what the future holds for us. Thank you all for coming. It's good to see your faces.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you
good.
very much. Thank you.
If anybody wants to stay on for a minute or two just to say hello, that would be great.
Okay.
Anyway,